Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the TV Tavern. I hope you have grabbed your mead. I hope you have grabbed a chair, gotten comfortable, joined around the table as we are ready to talk about the movie Conclave. Funny how relevant it is now in today's world, all things considered. Um, so, to start it off, Conclave is very simply about the elections for a new pope to represent the Catholic Church. In the movie, the Pope dies, and one of the cardinals is Cardinal Lawrence is appointed the one to run the conclave, which is where all the cardinals come from around the world to vote for a new pope. Different popes can make their cases, and then everybody has to vote. There's a whole cycle of like how many votes you have to have in order for it to happen, and there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of things that they do to set it up. But what makes this movie interesting is there's a lot going on. Honestly, you know how you talked about Silver, how Sinners kind of like was different than what you expected. I didn't expect as much to be going on with Conclave, and then when I watched it, I was blown away because there's discussions on doubt and faith and how they go hand in hand. There's discussion on traditional versus liberal viewpoints in church and interpretation of beliefs. One of the biggest things I found for the themes of this movie is the reluctance, but the acceptance of like leadership and power. And then also about secrets and I guess like human nature and all that stuff. It's a very surprisingly powerful movie with how there's no real action, there's no, crazy sequences. It's really just watching this very solid discussion on traditional church in modern day society. And I was blown away by it, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's crazy the amount of politics
Mm-hmm.
that even happen in the church. It's always funny how they say the church has no place in politics, but the church itself has its own politics,
Mm-hmm.
and we're able to see that in the conclave. How accurate it is, we really don't know genuinely,
Yeah.
right? However, we do know that there is these certain roles, there's these certain cardinals that surround the Pope and that are in charge of certain things
Mm-hmm.
within the church. So you can pretty much assume, right, based off on how people act in regular politics,
Mm-hmm.
humanity can tell you. I mean, at the end of the day, even if they are cardinals, they're still human, and where there is humans, there is always going to be like issues. Like there's always going to be human error, right?
Oh yeah.
No matter how holy somebody is, right? Uh, so I feel like the movie portrays a system that is pretty accurate in my opinion. Of how things are carried out when the pope passes. Um, it even mentions there's some cold, very I don't want to say evil, but there's some very cold, inhumane moments, like at the very beginning, right? Where like
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to, when they take the ring away from the Pope that just passed, and what's the word when the body is going through that phase where it tightens up?
Oh,
Postmortem?
postmortem rigor mortis? No, rigor mortis is when it
Rigor
does.
mortis.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can't get the ring out, and you see this cardinal just like really fighting to get the
Yeah.
ring out, because the ring itself in Catholicism has a meaning to it, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
significance to it, right? So having to get the ring out is such a morbid, cold way that they do it. Like you genuinely hear the whole cracking of the rigor mortis of the finger, and
Yeah.
just trying to strip that power, because like at the very beginning, the director does a fantastic job trying to show that hunger for power, right? I think he's setting the tone and saying this is going to be a movie about a bunch of humans that are very power hungry and selfish, with a lot of insecurities and other issues that they have going on, that want the seat right at the
Hmm.
very center of the table, right? And that ring to me set the tone pretty strongly
Oh, definitely.
in a pretty crazy way. Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think it's also interesting in contrast to Ralph Fiennes' character Lawrence, who comes off as very reluctant to want to really do any of this because he points out how the
Hmm.
Pope, I believe, told him, "You're more of a manager than like anything else, so you should manage this and handle the conclave." And how he did take that on because he was told that, but as the movie goes on, we find out that he keeps saying he doesn't want the part, but you have to ask yourself as the movie goes on, are you sure that's really not the case? Because sure, he
Hmm.
says he's not spiritually sound. He says he doubts himself. He talks about later on in the movie that he wants to leave because he doesn't feel like he can be a leader because he doesn't know if he can pray anymore. But we even see in the movie as it goes on that as more things happen, he actually admits that he's okay with taking the role and provides a name that he would be okay with being called by. Because I think once you become a pope, you have to like give them a name
You have
that
to
you want
pick
to be.
a Yeah, you have to pick a either a saint or a previous pope that that has served to follow a name under.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and it's interesting to see him go through this journey of discovering himself, because at the beginning, yeah, you're right. He genuinely doesn't know if he wants that sort of responsibility, if he wants to be a pope himself, because he found himself in a situation where, he felt he was lacking faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as the leader of the church, you would think that you're gonna, well, you would hope you would find the person with the most faith, right? So that is what his, at least his values tell him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's interesting to see him go down that path where he's like, it starts off with, I don't want to do this, and then this person's not suited, this person's not suited, we should do this, and then into, well, I would do better.
Yeah. Well, and that's because, as we see in the movie, what's interesting is how much the human condition plays into this decision. I mean, we have people lobbying for the the position. We have a guy bribing
Lobbying,
everybody
another
to
political term. It's
right,
crazy.
but it's
Yeah,
true though because you
it
see
is true.
somebody
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
bribing people to buy their votes.
Hmm.
You see
Yep.
another you see
Sabotage.
sabotage with a woman who comes in who had never been known before as a sister
A
who
nun.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and talks about having a baby with one of the cardinals
Cardinals.
and how because the church has been plagued with sex scandals before,
There's
you know.
racism too, because
Yeah, yeah.
that same cardinal is black,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that in itself was like, there's even conversations. It's like, do you really see this as like the next Catholic Pope? I mean, look at him.
Mm-hmm.
That is said in the movie.
Well, that
So
was
yeah,
a
there's even like a racial point to it too.
yeah, like Tedesco, right? I think Tedesco, who believes Italians should be the next pope because they haven't been for 40 years,
Oh
and
yeah, that
acted like
guy.
he
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
owed the chair or to become the pope. And you can see how everybody was trying to make sure he didn't get it because he would push them. He would have them digress from the liberal perspective that they've now had, but you can see how even that plays a factor in the votes because Bellini, who is the one that Lawrence and everybody was throwing their worth into, wasn't even getting the votes. He was barely in third place. He never really rose beyond, I think, 18 votes, and I think the majority you had to have was 70.
He was the
So
Kamala in the 2024 election.
yeah, and then the person who I would say is like Trump would be Tremblay, which is the one that was bribing people for the votes. And then when he was found out, he there you go. Um, but one of the things I really liked about this movie, and I wanted to hint at this earlier, and I want to hint at it again, is I love the theme of reluctance and of doubt. Because I feel like a lot of times, because when I grew up in church, I'm not practicing anymore, but I grew up in church. One of the things I was always taught was if you are strong in your faith, you have doubts. Because if you don't question what you believe, then you don't truly believe because you're not allowing yourself to grow in your faith. And there's a lot
Right.
of that in this movie. We have Bellini talking about the liberal progression and the reluctance of wanting to lead, but knowing, in terms of his faith and his beliefs, it would be more progressive and it would continue down the
Yep.
progressive route. You
Yep.
have others even Lawrence, who wonders if he's truly capable of being a pope or a leader. And then you have Benitez, who we find is a very pivotal character later on, how they say that his doubt proves he's the most worthy because he's afraid of that power and he wants to lead people correctly because he displays a strong sense of doubt and awareness of himself. So I love that this movie kind of dabbles in that discussion of how doubt and faith go hand in hand. I thought that was a
Yeah.
very big part for me.
No, for sure, definitely. I like that you brought that up because that's always been like the biggest thing for me. Is that, in my opinion, the a good leader is one who doubts,
Mm-hmm.
not one that is always sure of which way the you have to steer the boat. I feel like that applies to any sort of leadership role, and it is having to doubt. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and every well, I guess every single one of these men had a ton of doubt, but also a lot of other negative
Mm-hmm.
feelings. Um, uh, just it's wild to me, the amount of campaigning, the amount of scrutiny, the amount of sabotage that happens. Like, for example, Tremblay, right, who's played by John Lithgow.
Yeah.
Um, which, by the way, I love John Lithgow. His his acting career has been always fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, but he did a great job as Tremblay because he's the one that set up the nun to fly into the conclave to assist in the conclave that had the baby with the cardinal, the black cardinal that's named Adeyemi, just to try and sabotage him, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, Tremblay had been what's his name, Lawrence had found out, Cardinal Lawrence had found out that that Tremblay had been accused by the Holy Father, the Pope, um, of being bad, and at some point told him that he wanted Tremblay to resign,
Mm-hmm.
and coincidentally, the Pope passed. After that
Yeah.
conversation was had, almost makes you even doubt. It's like, did Tremblay kill the Pope? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a possibility too, but
Yeah.
there's just so much scandal and so much like wildness happening in this movie, but not to an unrealistic point.
I agree. Well,
Everything is that's the thing that makes you doubt that it's like, man, is this really what's happening right now in Rome? Because the narrative is so plausible, it's so realistic.
yeah.
You know, go ahead. What were we gonna say?
Oh,
Sorry,
I was
bro.
just gonna read I have a quote from Conclave that I
Go ahead.
really love
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I really love touching upon this concept of doubt in like religion. Because even in Lawrence's opening speech for the Conclave, which he got ridiculed for, which I found interesting because I feel like this is a message I hear consistently within churches is Lawrence says, certainty is the great enemy of unity. Certainty is the deadly enemy of tolerance. Even Christ was not certain at the end. My God, why have you forsaken me? He cried out in his agony at the 9th hour on the cross. Our faith is a living thing precisely because it walks hand in hand with doubt. If there was only certainty and no doubt,
Right.
there would be no mystery.
I like that one, yeah.
Yeah, right? And therefore, no need for faith. And then he said, let us pray that God will grant us a pope who doubts. And let him grant us a pope who sins and asks for forgiveness and carries on. It's such a good quote because
it's such a good quote. It's such a great line. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, I think in what you were touching upon is a leader is not afraid to doubt and not wonder if they make a mistake and then not be willing to learn from it. A leader is someone who sets the tone of like, I own my like sins or whatever. I own my mistakes, or like, what could I do better? What can we do to make sure that, you know, we stand together? Because you're never going to unite everybody under like a united idea, right? No matter what, you're always going to have that one person who doesn't agree for whatever reason, and that's fine. But to say that you never have any doubt, that would be very weird, and that wouldn't make sense.
That's
to me.
fishy. It's weird. Again, I would never trust anybody that told me, "Oh, I have no doubts. I always know what to do." Oh man, yeah, that's gonna be a "nah, I'm good, bro" situation for me. Like I couldn't follow somebody that doesn't know the weight of doubt.
Mm-hmm. Because I think you need to know doubt to truly be a good leader. You have to know,
of course,
handle doubt in some capacity. Because that would be weird if you were so sure-headed that you didn't experience any sort of wonder if you made the right choice. You and I are both managers, so I know you and I both have probably come up with decisions where we've asked, "Do we make the right choice?" And sure, we did. We did
today. If I'm being transparent, today I went to go talk to my executive director, a level above me, a level above my boss. So, because my executive director is not even my boss, and I was sweating bricks, but I felt like it needed that sort of level of attention, you know, because you have those situations of like, am I wrong? As a leader, am I making mountains out of anthills? You know, is this really an issue? And that doubt was repaid today. Thank God. I still have a job. I'm still employed. I kindly asked my executive director, "Sir, please don't fire me." To which he laughed and he said, "I would never fire you, Christian." So it was good to hear. It's good to hear that my boss's boss said, I would never fire you. Your boss will fire you. Plot twist. What? Your direct boss is the one that's going to fire you, but he didn't fire me. New anxiety unlocked for the rest of the night. That's awesome. Oh my Great. Gosh. I'm sleeping perfectly tonight. But all to say, as leaders, dude, we cannot steer the boat if we don't doubt, man. I think, you know, any level of leadership, and even like people that have actually, you know, steered boats, have been like, is that the right star? Because you know, the oceans look different depending on where you're in the world, and you don't know really where you are. So sometimes that's why you're looking at the stars, and those stars sometimes look a little bit different, and you're like, that looks like the Little Dipper, but maybe it's not. You know, maybe it's or some minor or some major. So you don't know.
Could you imagine? Hey, first mate, come here real quick. Is that a belt or is that a handle? And is that the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper?
I think that's the Big Dipper. That's right. It is. That good job, Hansman.
Way to go. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. So extra mead for you tonight, my friend. Oh, okay. Thank you.
And don't forget that orange.
Oh yeah, don't forget to let's avoid scurvy.
Yeah.
In the inside, that captain was like, "Oh shit, okay, thank God, oh my God, thank you Jesus,
Woo!
woo, woo."
Could you? It's like naked SpongeBob in the jellyfish field, like whoo, like that. Just
Oh man, God knows I've done that so many times with just my investigators. Been like,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, that's what I thought." Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. I'm glad we're on the same
Yeah, yeah.
page, 100%.
Well, I'm glad that you said it because I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad that you mentioned it. So thank you. You
I
know.
was, I just want to see how you think. That's what it is. Yeah, I wanted to hear you say it out loud. But like to tie it
Oh,
back though, I think that's why because there's a moment when
oh
Benitez
man.
tells Lawrence that he always votes for him, right?
Mm.
Because Benitez again points out, you brought up doubt, and Lawrence was literally saying, "I'm not worthy of being a pope. I don't want to be a pope." And it's like, then you are the epitome of doubt, and that's what would make you a great leader. Because look at how you've managed the conclave. Look how you've kept things going and protected the church. You may doubt your spiritual beliefs or like your abilities, but you've done enough to show me that you are the leader that we need. And I think that was so huge for that story to where that's why we do see the transition for Lawrence to a degree.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, being a manager doesn't mean that you have to be the head of
That's true.
leadership.
That's true. That's true. But I think compared to Bellini, Tedesco, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
Adeyemi,
yeah.
right? Is
Out
it
of
Adeyemi?
all those, there's always one lesser evil out of all evils.
Yeah. Because there's a. I'm trying to think of what
Let's
else
talk.
is.
Let's talk about the wild card because that's what he is. A
Benitez.
wild card. No, no, no. The cardinal that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that is Benitez. The one that
Is that his
had
name?
the. That's the one that had the surgery that became the kind of like,
Give it to them in pieces, Sambu.
okay, that's fine, whatever. You do it. You start. Go for it.
So no, you tell me.
No, no, no.
Tell us
You
about
got this. You
Benitez.
got the
How
wild
did
card.
Benitez come into this?
You got the
I'm gonna
wild
close
card.
this curtains. I'm good.
How dare? Okay, well, fine. I guess I gotta figure out how to do this in pieces. Chat, everybody at the tavern. Benitez, is from a church in Kabul, and nobody knows anything about them because they're, what is the term? Impra something, which is basically like they're a pope, but they're in a specific way. Benitez, hold on. Let me look it up real quick because this is a big part.
Anbu didn't do his notes before the episode.
Shush.
I have no notes.
No, but there was like
I have no notes.
because it
I
was
have
a
beer.
it was a
That's about it.
cardinal because there's a in something something. There is a certain term that they use to say that like Benitez becomes a cardinal. Um, in
By default or something like that.
in
I think it's because of there not being any other like figures within that.
in pectore. That's what it is.
Mm.
Which means in Latin, it's in the heart or breast. It's when it's meant to be kept a secret, and there's a bigger secret at play, and there's a major reason why for that secret for Benitez, but it's not found out until the very end. But
At the
Benitez comes out.
very end.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good. I honestly really love the twist, but we can disagree on that. That's fine. But I'll just say
get
this.
to it.
So
Tell us about it, Albu.
So Benitez is the cardinal in Pectore from Kabul, and they had served in other churches as well, but they had come all the way from Kabul and then came to the conclave, and nobody heard of it before because it was meant to be in secret. So therefore, it was legitimate, even though nobody had known about them before. So then they got to vote, but there's a lot of questions regarding who they are, what they stand for, what they believe, because you don't hear a lot from Benitez. He is a wild card. He just kind of does his
Yeah.
thing. He votes. He stays
Showed
there,
up.
observes whatever, and watches to see how people are because he's gauging. Because and that's the thing that's interesting to me about Benitez is he's not making himself like stand out. He's just there.
Yeah,
But
he's just
that
watching. He's just been
mhm.
observing. He stays really quiet. He does show his. He does throw his support behind Lawrence though
Mhm.
at the beginning. He says, "Hey, I think you'd be great as a pope as
But
well."
wasn't it after the second vote when
Mhm.
he voted the second time, and then Lawrence like asked him, "Why did you vote for me?"
Can you stop voting for me,
Yeah,
please? Because we need to throw our support behind Bellini. And he's like, nah, fam,
yeah,
you. He's like, you're not listening.
yeah. And then Benitez is
He's
just
like,
like,
nah,
"You,
you're not listening.
yeah,
He's like, you. It's almost like that. It's like,
yeah." Oh, who's this silly cardinal that's gonna be pope to me?
Who's gonna vote?
Here comes the
That's
train with my vote.
choo choo boop. That's basically.
It's so true though. I mean, Benitez is literally like, "You're gonna have my vote, and you're gonna like it." That's not even a
basically.
question.
That's his energy. He's like, I'm still voting for you.
I know. Could you imagine just like legs in the back kicking, like on the bed, be like, "Oh, you're so adorable, Cardinal Lawrence. I'm still voting for you." Oh my gosh.
Man. But I mean, he's such a wild card. It's crazy. You don't know what to expect to him, and the story gets kind of wild for a bit because Tremblay gets exposed of like him trying to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All these other characters, have their moments too. The drama gets wild.
Man.
Everybody just forgets about them, and then there's that explosion that happens
Mm-hmm.
too towards the
Towards the end,
I think
which
towards close to the
so
end. Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, everybody, just to kind of let you all know what happens to break it down. So one of the things that I thought was crazy, first of all, was in the setup of the conclave, they were like, what they were doing stuff to windows. They were setting stuff up to where you couldn't read the vibrations in the room, so you couldn't hear who was being voted for. That's the part that blew my mind. Was they're like, it's so secretive that they're readjusting the windows that they have in like the Sistine Chapel, so that way nobody can hear what is like going on.
Being said, right?
Yeah, and then like freaking Lawrence is being all Batman over here. He finds out that Adeyemi, that somebody brought this girl from Africa to destroy Adeyemi by saying, "Hey, I have a son with you. This is your child." And then he tries to deny it, and then Lawrence has to give him the talk about how he can never be pope because the church has been in sex scandals before. And there's a really powerful moment because one of the things that really struck a chord with me in that moment was Adeyemi trying to say, "I've changed. I've atoned for my sins. I've done everything I can. I want to be pope." But his sins from his past destroy his chances because he tried to bury it. It was as if he was trying to bury it, and Lawrence just has to tell him, "You can't be pope because of that." And it breaks my heart because even though I don't like Adeyemi's beliefs, because we find out from Bellini that he believes that gay people should be jailed and then executed, or like jailed and jailed again, or something like that. It broke my heart to see somebody who seemed like he was genuinely a good person, but like we've talked about before, everybody has secrets in their closet to where he did something. Honestly, I don't think it's wrong, but according to the church, it's wrong. Which is
Yeah, according to the church, it's wrong, and it's always been like a big topic in the church where should should people of the cloth allow to marry and have children. I've never seen an issue with that, dude.
Well,
Like,
no, it's having out of wedlock. That's the big thing.
oh, that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, it
C-
wouldn't have been a wedlock. It wouldn't be. Let's be real. It would have never have been out of wedlock had it not been an issue to begin with to
Yeah.
be even be able to marry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Just
but
saying.
no,
Just
I agree.
saying.
It was one of those moments where I felt for him because it's like I would not have like thought of that as being a reason he couldn't be Pope. But the
Yeah, he
fact that it
broke down.
was, yeah.
We have a moment where he breaks down, and because Lawrence actually tells him, "You will never be Pope," right? And for somebody who was very set on that and had been building his entire career
Hmm.
to be told that, I understand how devastating it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then, like you said, oh, and then the reason why how he found out about Tremblay. Sorry, I'll just jump to the other one too. Is like
Yeah,
even with Tremblay, Lawrence had to break into the dead Pope's room, which I think they sealed it off, and it's supposed to be sacred or something like that. I'm not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
familiar enough with like customs and traditions
Me
in
neither on that
the
one, bro.
church, so I don't
And
know
I'm
why.
Catholic.
But yeah, he found the documents that the
I
Pope
must
had
have
been.
missed it on that first day in Catholic school. Never going to
Darn
the
it!
Pope's dead room, you
Yeah,
know.
Pope 101. You never took that
It's like,
class.
Christian, you should not go into the dead Pope's room. That's bad. You
Yeah.
should not do that. It's
How
like,
did you not
I remember that
know?
day in school. I remember that day in school, man. I must have missed it. I'm sorry. Sister
Yeah,
Teresa, I apologize. May
I.
you rest in peace. I missed that one.
Yeah, but like he
Yeah.
broke into the dead Pope's room to find the documents that he had been taking that he had found of Tremblay's bribery, and that's why he was asking
Yeah.
Tremblay to resign. And then, even though Lawrence said, "I can't admit that you did that," people are going to know if I say a certain thing that means you cannot be Pope either. And I thought that was interesting, where it's like again
Yeah.
the context and the way that he frames why he'll never be Pope
Mhm.
was very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
But
Pope didn't trust them at all. I
yeah.
mean, the Pope had been, and they say and disclose it because the Pope had been doing so much background checks and keeping so many tabs on every single one of them. Like the Pope knew what's up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Pope was playing the puppet master from way before all this happened. Like the Pope knew he was going to pass, and he kept tabs on everything and how things were going to play out and everything. It was almost creepy, but
Yeah.
but yeah,
But yeah, so in the end though, like you were getting at, there's a moment where Lawrence I think it's interesting because it feels like it was symbolic almost, where it's like Lawrence finally accepted that he was gonna be the one that everybody was gonna put their vote into. Because he had the discussion with Bellini, he chose the name John, I believe was his Pope name, and he
yeah,
was ready to write. He wrote his name as Lawrence. He had it on his vote, and as soon as he gave them the vote, there was an explosion, and then it looked like light came down. It was very symbolic of like this whole moment. To me, it felt very symbolic of
yeah.
like, you know, I don't know what type of symbolism it was. I don't, maybe my brain just couldn't fathom it, but it was
It
like,
was symbolic,
bam!
guys. I just don't know what kind of symbolism it was.
But it's true though. I don't know. Like I'm trying to like I felt like it was symbolic, but I don't know what the symbolism was trying to capture in that moment. Of was
Yeah,
it
the
him?
thing is, the director did put a lot of lighting. It added a lot of like very slow motion shots. It was like such a um I don't want to say iconic moment, but like at least a special moment. It almost felt like it was the will of God.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I don't know. I've lost it. I've lost the plot here. Forgive me, Silver. You're like, damn it, Anbu, come on! You were
It's
trying to say
okay.
something.
It's
But
okay.
here's the thing, though. What I love about that is it sets up this moment where we've seen the whole entire conclave shaken. They don't know who's going to win the vote. Everybody who had the popular vote or looked like they'd have the majority had been kicked out. We had Adeyemi, they're gone. Tremblay, who was winning, they're gone. no one knew who was going to win. So Tedesco, and the problem, the whole entire thing was what Bellini and the people and like Lawrence and what were focusing on was they didn't want Tedesco to take over because he would regress them even further with his value
Oh
with his
yeah,
beliefs.
that dude literally is probably all the negative things that you've ever heard of the Catholic Church was
Mm-hmm.
that person.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, he was definitely the very conservative side of the church, the embodiment of the conservative side of the church, and it's was definitely not the way that they
Yeah.
wanted it to go, or they believe the current state of the world would be okay with.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah,
Well,
but go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna move on to the wild
Oh,
card, but
well,
go ahead.
so to add to your wild card, so you can continue on with that, we get this powerful moment after they've like determined that someone set a bomb off and everything. Tedesco tries to use this moment to say like, we need to take on these animals. We're fighting a war. It's a spiritual
Oh
war.
yeah,
Makes this big, emboldened, impassioned speech where he's like, yeah, spiritual war. Yeah,
yeah,
we gotta
power.
fight the people. I don't know who
Yeah,
we're fighting, but yeah,
we're fighting somebody.
yeah,
Yeah,
because spiritual war and Satan and demons and bombs and shit. I don't know, but war. And then
Free
our.
Ran would have been in there. It's like, yeah, kill the demons.
But then now, if you want to talk about the wild card and their moment, and then lead
No,
into
and
it.
that's like well, the wild card basically kind of like because a lot of like fear mongering, a lot of anger. He uses that opportunity to rile people up and try and get them on his side and to say, you know, we need to stand up to these people that are defying the church,
Oh
and this is
yeah,
when the church needs to be the strongest, and we need to defeat our enemies, and just using all this anger and hate to rally them behind. But our wild card, what's his name again? I'm sorry, I always keep
Benitez,
forgetting
you're
his name.
good.
Benitez.
Benitez, yeah.
Benitez just disarms them with like these very like humble, very calming words of like we need to kind of like look at ourselves. I mean, look at what we're doing. Like we are basically fear mongering.
Mm-hmm.
We're reacting with this uh in a very angry way. Like we like what are we doing here? Like like he gives them basically like a reality check of everything that he's been seeing throughout this entire conclave, and that they need to do better as leaders of the church, and in the name of God and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He basically just he kills that all that anger in a few words, and it reminds them that the church, and it's something that honestly it hit me very personally, because it's always been my issue with the church. Because growing up as a Catholic, I've always been taught to love, to be patient, to be caring, to be understanding, to be forgiving. But all I always have seen from the church and the communities I've belonged to has always been very reserved, very clicky, very if you're not doing what we're doing, like you're wrong. That's kind of the thing that's turned me away from the church for many years now.
Yeah.
And I because as a kid that grew up in Mexico, seeing a lot of these like smaller churches, very humble churches, struggling every single day, supporting their communities, and then coming over to the States and then seeing all these like super churches, the super Christian churches, and the amount of money that flows through them, and how these like reverends and all these like figures, spiritual figures, make so much money off of people, and giving very little back to the communities. They give back to the community, but realistically, it's very little. than the
Yeah.
give back. And putting up all this entire productions, because that's what it is. It's productions. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get all, religious and political here with you guys, but seeing the contrast of these very smaller churches, more humble, almost no money, and seeing these priests do so many great things for these smaller communities with almost nothing, and then seeing the contrast that I see here in the States, it's just like the way that this cardinal speaks, he talked a lot about that, about how we need to stay humble and how we need to remember not to just have like these big heads of, I don't know, because the thing is that we also got to see through the entire movie like how these cardinals got treated like kings.
Mm.
They had special meals prepared, they had special rooms prepared, they had all these fancy things, you know and and I and I and I and I'm just thinking like, man, look at those big rooms that these cardinals have. You could probably fit a whole family in there in need.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, look at all these fancy meals these individuals are having. So you could probably feed a whole family with this, and it's like, is this really the Catholic Church, man? And this cardinal, again, what's his name? Sorry, Betteloni,
Benitez.
Benitez reminds them of like, man, we are way past this, man. Like what's happening to us? Like we need to look inwards. Like
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well, one of my
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm
I
done.
was just gonna say one of my favorite parts is,
Get off my
especially
soapbox.
in that
Sorry.
speech. No, you're good. Is I like that he actually challenges Tedesco. He's like, "What war are you talking about? And have you ever been in war?"
Yeah, oof,
because
man, that was so
he hits
cool.
him back with that, because it's easy to say inflammatory statements and to get people riled up and to push them into your favor, but I love what he does to subdue them. Is simply says, what spiritual warfare? Do you know what war is like? Do you
Against
understand?
who?
Yeah, he questions the very thing that Tedesco is trying to build his platform on. And I love that he even says, I've been through war before. I've been in war-torn countries. I know what it's like. So you don't know what war is. This is not war. So adding to your part, it's like it's a very powerful movement. And to me, I think it shows the whole time that it's like the meek will inherit the earth is like a Bible verse, right? Jesus says like the meek will inherit the earth. And Benitez, for me, it's like symbolic of that, of like the meek inheriting the earth, of like inheriting the rightful spot, because here's someone who is not trying to be vocal and be the leader or be the image of that. They're simply trying to say like what matters. And that leads to our ending, right?
That leads to our ending where Benitez eventually gets voted in to become the Pope. And I like how the director kind of like shifts the cameras and everything to the point where eventually we think, oh, it's going to be Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Until we see Lawrence, speaking to Benitez and telling him, hey, do you basically accept being the head of the church?
Yeah.
Right? And him accepting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. That ending was, to me, the movie should have ended there. And I think this is where Anbu and I are gonna go ahead and have split ends.
Okay, so let's just put it out there. So one of the biggest parts of this movie that is huge is the discussion on progressive values like the LGBT community and how does that fit in. There's a whole discussion on whether or not popes can be female, and what happens is
priests can they be female.
And so in this movie there's a whole discussion on who Benitez was, because one of the things that was very odd was that they had to go to Switzerland for some doctor's appointment. And what we find out is that actually what makes Benitez, what the secret was and why it was in pectore, is that Benitez is intersex. He has ovaries. and he had a hysterectomy, and he found out about it after many years in the church, and actually went to the Pope and said, "Hey, I feel like I've sinned, I've lied, I can't be this because I have this. I'm so ashamed." And that's why the Pope was like, "No, you can still be a cardinal. You will be in pectore. You are still who you are. We'll take care of this for you." And so the movie ends with, again, Lawrence having to keep a secret, because Lawrence is leaving the church. He still does leave in the end, but now it's like the secret of the first intersex Pope, the first, um, it's a progressive step. So I think what I liked about it was how this whole entire discussion on whether or not the Pope can be beyond, a male Pope, that this does end up happening without anyone really knowing it, and that this could be the change moving forward for the church and leads to their progressive ideals.
I'm all for the church having progressive ideals. If anything, it is one of the things I really appreciated about Pope Francis. He was very progressive for the kind of Pope that we had currently. He was very accepting of a lot of things in the LGBTQ, not to a perfection,
Of course,
but very accepting,
far more
and
progressive than
very
a lot of other
kind.
popes. Yeah.
For sure. I found it unnecessary
Okay.
to make him intersex. Like, I feel like there was no point in the narrative to put that. I didn't find in the story narrative, I didn't find it like, I just didn't find it, like, we clearly already have a very kind, very mindful, and very meek, like you said, Pope that was going to be leading the church.
Okay.
I just felt like that was too pushy of a narrative that is unnecessary, in my opinion. Like, what it didn't add value to the story. I'm very big on value to stories,
Okay.
because that's what I always tell my investigators. What value does this that you're adding to this investigation? Why are you adding this? How does this add value to the investigation? How is this going to help law enforcement capture this individual? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it was like, what was the value in this? How does this? I don't know. To
Okay.
me, again, we're already talking about a pope that is no longer white. It is a color pope. He speaks Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
He is of the humblest type of backgrounds, is already being elected to lead the church with a very wonderful mindset, a very beautiful mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And there goes my camera, because
And
for
there
some
goes,
reason, because why not? Because why not, chat? Because if it ain't
Yeah.
scuff, you ain't streaming, or you ain't streaming.
Recording.
If you
Yeah.
ain't streaming, you're not recording a podcast. It'll reconnect again. As long as you can hear me, whatever.
Yeah,
Anyways,
we can
my camera Elgato does not agree with Silver. I am being censored. I am being censored. I didn't honest. If anything, those sort of things, I find it to be a disservice to the LGBTQ. I find it to be insulting to them, because it's almost like, as a colored person, it almost feels like being like, oh, you're the token colored person for this story, for this movie, and you're the token transgender, you're the token, gay, lesbian person in this story. That's how it felt like, man.
I can see that. Like, it's
Why?
kind of, well, it's kind of as if, like, it's trying to say you have to be the message, not like this. There's a like an actual sensible reason for it. It's like using it and forcing it rather than letting it be a thing, right? That's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it does a disservice, because it will cause people to be like, oh, great, you had to add that in rather than letting it be its own natural, organic thing where people could discuss it, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can, I can, I can, I can see that. It is. I can see how that's like. Is it aggrandizing, self-aggrandizing, or whatever, or like,
Yes.
um, whatever? I the only thing that I would say, and maybe I'll. This is the way I would try to spin it, and this could be one of those hot takes that isn't correct, but I
Uh-huh.
think the significance of it is this whole entire time Lawrence, Bellini, and all of them have argued that they are progressive, that they are moving forward with like being more progressive and less stuck on the old ways and less about focusing on like older traditional values that Tedesco and Adeyemi represent. And for this to be intersex is a pivotal moment to test whether or not Lawrence is prepared for such a change that is more progressive. So I can see how that might be the what it adds to it is the discussion of, you know, is this too far? And here we've talked about acceptance in this whole entire movie, acceptance of who we are and what makes us who we are. And in this moment, Benitez is forced to admit who they are, and your camera's gone again. but
It's okay. It's okay.
but anyway,
It's
my point though is I can see your
Mm.
perspective, and I'm sure like I can agree with it, but I can also try to argue and understand that maybe there's a moment to show the question of is the church truly as progressive if they were to know who Benitez is being of intersex, because that is a very big thing. But like you said, I can also agree how much does that really serve the purpose of the story?
I just
So,
don't see the purpose because here's the thing again, we've elected the story. The point of the story was choosing the best pope. I guess that's the
mm-hmm.
point of every conclave. We got to see the different narratives, the different the posturings, the different types of uh, politicians, the different types of politics that went into everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually we got somebody that we got to see is very humble, very kind, um, and is again not the standard white
Mm-hmm.
pope,
No, I can agree. That's
right?
what I'm saying. I
That's
can.
already very progressive, guys. We have always had a very white pope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me when was the last black pope, please.
No, dude,
Can
I
you
agree
tell
with you.
me?
I'm on board with you on that. I get it. So
There has
I
never been one. Has there ever been a colored pope? No, not
yep.
really. And here we have a pope of Latin, origin. That straight up spoke Spanish in multiple times throughout the movie. Uh, so that making him, I'm sorry, what's the word again? It's not transgender because
Intersex.
transgender intersex. Thank you. Um, was too much. Was over the top. That it didn't add to the narrative. It didn't. If there is one thing that I can think of that added that it is that I'm sorry to get religious with you guys,
No,
but
it's fine.
if we get spiritual and religious, angels are known to not have a sex, right? So if let's say God chose this man, well, I'm sorry, this human being, right, to be the leader of the church, okay, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see the point there, but it wasn't like that.
But let me give you one more reason why I do think it's significant. And
Let me hear,
you
brother.
can disagree
Let
with
me
me on
hear
this,
it,
and that's
brother
fine.
Anbu.
The big part is the Pope knew. Because think about it.
The Pope knew, yeah.
The
But I
Pope
mean,
knew it because again, we find out that Benitez says, I had a hysterectomy, I went to
yeah.
the Pope, I asked for forgiveness. I thought I was wrong for being who I am. And for the Pope to say, no, you can still be with God, you can still be who God made you, and you can still
Yeah.
serve God, and even in Impectore, I think that's why it kind of mattered, because why was Benitez Impectore? I think that had to be resolved, and I think it shows again that like the Pope was truly progressive. So like I do see
Oh yeah,
that
yeah. The Pope
angle.
was very progressive, right?
So I think that's the other reason why it was added to that, was because I think it shows that if the Pope knew, then that was a radical step forward for the church. But I can, like I said, I can also.
Because I mean, he was already brown. That's already very progressive,
That's
dude.
fair.
It's because
No,
we
no,
have
I'm.
to we have to put it in perspective, Anbu. The thing is, look, if the United States just now started barely electing, having officials that are of people of color, the Catholic Church is even more way pushed behind. Like they're
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
way more behind than like anywhere else in the world. Like
yeah,
way more behind. You know, it's super conservative,
yeah, yeah.
man.
No, no,
It's
dude.
extremely conservative.
I
The
only laugh
fact that we
because.
had that movie even presented the fact that we had a pope of color, that Pope Francis. He was Argentinian. That already was very
Mhm.
freaking liberal. He looked white
Dude,
as
yeah.
hell, but he was the
That's
whitest of Latinos, honestly. But nonetheless, that already was very progressive, and that was already setting a pretty good tone
yeah.
for the current church, like the IRL church. So, in this storyline, we've had only white popes.
Mm-hmm.
So just the fact that we already had a pope of color was already extremely progressive.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sorry, man. I just don't see how having an intersex pope
Mm-hmm.
added anything except for the spiritual thing that I mentioned, where like, okay, maybe God elected him and that's why he had to be half man, half woman. You know, you know that is beautiful in a way. Maybe I understand that, but
No,
that
dude.
did
I
not come off like to me.
I was only chuckling because of the timing and the way that you said it. That was the only reason why. When
Right.
like earlier when I was like saying it, and then like when you started your comment, that was the only reason why I chuckled. I understand what you're
Oh
getting
no,
at.
no, I'm not. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You're good.
but like
You're
I
good.
get that. That is significant because you're right. Because majority of church is, not to get too preachy over here and to elongate too much, but
Preach, brother. Preach.
majority of the church is very white. I mean, you think about um slavery by the church, again, very white people, British, the way that they justified slavery, the way that racism is embellished by religion. Like there's a lot of things that point out that religion for the most part is very white. So for, like you said, I agree. For the fact that the church voted Benitez in is very crucial and a very big step forward,
Yeah.
because that is significant. We cannot undermine that. You're right. Like for perspective, that's like they went from all the way over here in this timeline where you can't see my hand to all the way over here where you can't see my hand jump, but they did jump. So I agree with you. I do see, but I guess what the end of the day for me is, I think I see both sides. I recognize that it can serve as very self-serving to have that moment, but I think I can understand the attention, and that's why I was good with it. But I will agree, if the movie ended with Benitez choosing the name Innocence as their pope name and it ended there, that would have been
That
perfect.
would have been
That was
that was
perfect.
beautiful. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, because there's a black there's like a fade out, and I was like, oh, okay, that's the end of the movie, and then it's like, psych. Let's talk about
Yeah.
what's up. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, why do we need to see what's going on? And then we
Yeah.
find that out. I'm
But
like, bro, come on, that's too much.
But at the end of the day, though, dude, I would say. for me, like, I would recommend the movie. I think it's well done, even if you're
Oh
not
yeah,
religious.
yeah.
Like,
I totally
100% think it's worth watching. I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. I think it's discussion on doubt and religion, and then also how human nature still influences things within the church is a good discussion. Because again, like all these people try to say, God, I heard the voice of God, in these moments, and then you see like you're trying to make this up so you could still run to be pope. Like there's these powerful moments of like display of like faith and doubt and corruption and everything, and it's well done.
Yeah, dude, I just realized that the actor that plays Benitez is Carlos Diaz, and he is a Mexican. He is Mexican. He's a Mexican
Huh.
actor.
No kidding.
How more progressive do you want to get like that, man?
Yeah.
Mexican Pope
Yeah.
doesn't get any more. It does not. It is even the Juan Pablo II, Pope John Paul II always said Mexico. What did he used to call us? Mexico siempre fiel. Mexico always faithful. There wouldn't have been a more beautiful ending than that, man.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But I'm just Mexican, so whatever. It's no big deal.
No, but I get what you're saying. I think at the end of the day, like it's gonna depend for some people how they feel about the ending. I think that's what also to me makes
Tell us
it
what
powerful.
you think. Tell us in the comments, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us what you think. Tell us in the comments.
We really would love to hear it.
Let us know.
But as we wrap this up for a close, I do want to say everybody pay your tabs. Just because we've had this conversation doesn't mean you don't pay your tabs. Pay it, please. Those ninja cats will mess you up hardcore.
Right now, the ninja cat was. I think I saw him dragging a body. He was there. They've been pretty active tonight. So if you want to add to the body count, okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you will keep our place warm. It'll help the furnace, that's for sure. But please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Is that why it always smells like carne asada? Jesus Christ!
I don't. Sorry, Ninja Cats. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell him that. Can we pretend like that never happened?
Wow. As long as I'm not eating it, let's not do like the episode from we just did. If whatever I'm putting in my mouth, please let me know what it is at least, please. Whatever I'm eating.
Fair. You haven't eaten any of that, so just letting you know, you're fine. You're good.
Swear to God, Anbu.
No, it's true. You haven't. You're good. It's more for the fragrance and the.
Salt.
Listen. We want people hungry. If they smell meat, no, I'm kidding. Sorry, this is getting into weird territory. I'm kidding. We don't use it for a furnace. The Ninja Cat just takes care of it, and then that's it. Nothing happens. It's not for the furnace. I'm sorry. You can cancel.
Guys.
You can cancel me.
Cooked.
It's fine.
So cooked,
but anyway,
we're cooked.
Please don't forget to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. I promise we're not cannibals. That was just a really bad joke gone very wrong.
I don't know. I don't know anymore. What is life? What is reality? Oh, God.
Until the next time, everybody. I guess I will see you maybe after.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Please don't cancel us. We're not cannibals, I swear.